Hello everyone, I'm here to do an adverse possession quick lecture for the California Bar Exam. This is for the writing portion and also helps you with your MBEs. So I'll give you an essay approach, and at the end of the video I'll type up what approach you should use for the adverse possession. So first of all, we start with adverse possession. We give our rule: allows one who has wrongfully entered a property to obtain possession of that property when there has been actual possession, which is open and notorious, and the possession is hostile continuously for the statutory period, which is also known as HOAC. Hold on one second, let me get this. So we know it as H, hostile, O, open and notorious, A, have to be actual possession, and C, continuous for the statutory period if it's given, and if it's not given, I'll tell you what we do for that, okay? Next slide. So next slide, let's go to elements first. HOAC, I just said it's actual possession. Open and notorious, which is also known as visible possession. I'll explain that in a second. Hostile possession and continuous use for the statutory period. Actual possession, the claimant must actually have exclusive use of the property. He must physically occupy the property. That's the first element needs to be met. He must physically occupy the property, must be on it, and exclusive use only. Exclusive use means the true owner must be excluded and they're not sharing. He doesn't know of it, anything of that sort. Partial possession, a reasonable percentage of the property must be actually used. So let's say he's only using a piece in the back with where the little shed is at. That's the only piece that the claimant may only claim possession on, that part actually used or occupied, not the entire property, okay? Those are for MBEs, only on the part actually used or occupied. Tenant possession, the claimant may lease the premises to a tenant to satisfy this element. So in order to satisfy actual possession, if he's leasing it to a tenant, then you're going to argue that for on his side on your essay. So this is actual possession. These are the elements. A lot of this comes up on MBE, so you really need to know these, not memorize, but just know how it works. Next one is, okay, so we have open and notorious or visible possession, I call it. So the claimant must use the property in a way that the owner would use it, okay? So the claimant that the adverse possessor must actually use this property as the owner would use it, okay? And use must be open to put owner on notice of the trespass. It must not be hidden. The owner must be have notice of the trespass, okay? Example, if owner uses the land for summer months, the claimant needs to also only use the land for summer months. So open, notorious, visible possession is the claimant must use the property in a way that the owner would use it, must put the owner on notice, and it can only use it for example summer months, and that's how the claimant needs to use it. Hostile possession, that means without the owner's consent. If property owner occupies land mistakenly thinking it's his, I see these a lot in MBEs. We have an owner who puts a portion of his fence on the neighbor's land, actually mistakenly thinking that it belongs to him. So that actually belongs to another, and that would be hostile. Okay, they would consider that hostile for the MBEs. Now the ouster of a co-tenant. So if we have two tenants, it needs to be in the facts for hostile. So because all tenants have equal right to possession. And an ouster means occurs when one tenant claims an exclusive right and refuses to occupancy to the second tenant. Now he has to refuse him occupancy. It just can't be because the second tenant decides to move out of state and doesn't want to be there. It needs to be because he refuses, and you'll see that in the actual MBA facts. So in order for it to be hostile, he has to refuse or ouster the other co-tenant, okay? Next one, continuous use for a statutory period. If they don't give you a statutory period in the facts, common law is usually 20 years, but it varies with typical 15 years. So it just depends on what they're giving you in the facts. Continuous possession, owner may not re-enter. So if the owner leaves and decides to re-enter, it's going to start at the time where he re-enters, not the entire time because he left. Seasonal use may satisfy if this is the typical way the owner uses the property. That's okay. So if you use it only in the summer and you're always there in the summer, then that's considered seasonal use, and that is a continuous use for the statutory period. Now you can tack. One adverse possessor may tack their time with another adverse possessor. One adverse possessor, let's just say, is there for 2 years. The other one's there for another 3 years. We're going to tack the time in together to meet the element of continuous use, okay, for that statutory period. Then you'll go into what's the effect of the adverse possession. It obviously does not convey marketable title, but the adverse possessor can be made by marketable title by judicial action to quiet title. So you can go to court on it, get a judicial action to quiet title, and then we can have marketable title. But at first, it does not convey marketable title. Adverse possessor must go into court by judicial action to a quiet title. Fact triggers for APSA and MBE. So ineffective transfer of property, contract fails, statute of frauds, deed not properly delivered. All of this will trigger an adverse possession SA or MBE. Now, if they have events in there from 15 to 20 years, of course, we're automatically going to think of an adverse possession. Seasonal use, adverse possession. Building placed over property lines, so a little bit over to the neighbors, onto the neighbor's land or fence, that's obviously adverse possession also. And they're going to consider that hostile, even though they mistakenly did it, okay? Approach, we're going to do our rule. I give that to you at the beginning. Is it actual, open and notorious? Is it hostile? You argue all your facts, you do your analysis on all these. Is it continuous use for the statutory period? You can do tacking and all of that with that. And what's the effect? No marketable title, but you can go to judicial court to convey marketable title with a, what did that one say? With a judicial action to quiet titles. If you go for judicial action for quiet title. So let's go all the way back to our first one here. We start with our rule, our elements, HOAC. We go to actual possession, argue those facts, use those facts. We go to open and notorious. Was it visible? Was the owner on notice? Is the property the way the owner owns it? Hostile? Was it done without the owner's consent? The ouster of a co-tenant, remember, he has to say no. You're not allowed. He refuses him to come on the property, not just that the second tenant doesn't want to come on the property. In order for it to be hostile, you must refuse it to him. Continuous use for statutory period. Usually they'll give you the years on there. If they don't, then it's 20 years. Typical is 15 years. Remember, seasonal use, tacking. Must be continued possession. So if he leaves and comes back, it's going to start at the time he comes back, okay? Effect of the AP, no marketable title, we just went through that. And then these are the fact triggers. So if you get any of these fact triggers, you automatically think AP for SA and MBE. So our approach, rule, actual, open and notorious, hostile, continuous use, and effect. So we can write that up quickly on the bar exam. Usually I like to go on the bar exam, and if I'm typing it up, I just write these out, period. These will be my head notes, and then I run from there. Okay, so it's not about memorizing, it's about knowing how it works. And you know, the way you can learn how these work is do tons of essays and also tons of NBEs. So you know how the actual facts work, and you don't have to actually memorize everything. So good luck on the bar exam, and I hope this helps you with your actual possession, writing of an essay, or helps on NBEs.